Are you curious about the pros and cons of having co-anglers at a professional fishing level? We're going to talk about that.
Welcome back to another episode of 5 Minute Fish Talk.
This coffee's delicious. There's also 5 minutes on time here, and you know what that means. Boop! It's time to get real. Today we're talking about co-anglers, the argument for them, the argument against them with regards to professional fishing events. Here's the thing, the FLW Tour during the summer got rid of co-anglers. So at this point in time, there is no professional fishing level that co-anglers can compete. First and foremost, I want to point out that I used to have a website called fishingtheback.com. It is now in the internet graveyard and I don't own it anymore. I don't do anything with it anymore, solely because I didn't have time for that, but that's besides the point. It was really a media outlet for co-anglers. What is a co-angler? Let's define a co-angler. Essentially, a co-angler is the angler in the back of the boat. They don't own the boat, but they're also competing in a tournament against the other anglers that are fishing as non-boaters. So, pretty simple to see kind of what that means, maybe what potential issues you could have at a professional level, so on and so forth. But first and foremost, I'm going to talk about the argument for co-anglers, and then I'm going to get into the argument against co-anglers. Before I do that, I do want to point out the fact that this is really a no-win conversation for me, because regardless of what I say, I feel like there's going to be people over here that are going to yell at me, there's going to be people over here that are going to yell at me, so I'm going to try to do my best to stay unbiased and keep this thing positively moving forward. I will say, because I have a past with co-anglers, I really do, there is a sweet spot in my heart for them. I really think in its best intention, co-anglers is a good thing, but we'll get to the point that it's not always, it doesn't always work that way, we'll put it that way. So the argument for co-anglers, I would say first and foremost, it's an additional revenue stream for these tournament organizations. You know, you can charge more to fish as a co-angler than you can charge to be a marshal and just sit in a boat and watch someone. Their marshal program sounds pretty cool, I guess, on the new FLW one, but it's not necessarily something I would do at this point in my life. I understand why people do. They go, they watch a pro fish, they feel like they're getting a lot of value out of that, plus it's just a fun day on the water. I'd rather have a rod and reel in my hand, quite frankly. But anyways, additional revenue stream. The other thing is it's really talent for these organizations. There are countless professionals in multiple different professional fishing events that come from being co-anglers. And I think that's something that they need to keep in mind. You need to make sure that you're fostering growth for anglers so that way they can compete in future generations. You look at some of these young guns out there that are competing and just kicking butt. It's not like they always had a boat every day in their life. Some of them may have because they came from that wealth or whatever, but not everybody does. So I think you have to kind of keep that in mind. That being said, again, there are still semi-pro events, so I think there's kind of an argument there to be had about the fact that you can really foster growth through those channels. Okay, so the argument against co-anglers, I know a lot of people, this is where I'm going to start making people mad, is realistically, these are professional fishing events. They're 3 to 4 days. This is a limited amount of fish. So let's say that you've got 3 spots that have big schools of fish. After a couple days, you could be really dwindling down the amount of fish on that spot. And if you have a second guy in your boat, that could make it go even faster. The other thing is these guys are paying the big money. They're competing at a very high level. They're spending a ton of money to be in these entry fees and all the other things, the travel, all the costs associated with trying to make a living fishing tournaments. So when you have somebody else back there that's paying way less than you and trying to compete and still catch those fish, that can be kind of an issue. The last thing is blowing up their spot. This is really the main conversation. If there was all good co-anglers, people that are really respectful to their boaters, this would have never been a conversation at all. But unfortunately, there are people that will cast in front of the boat. They'll do things that are really unethical as a co-angler, which I do not personally believe in. And that really, really gets people agitated because it's basically it's like stealing from that pro. If you go out and you cast in front of him and you catch an 8-pounder when he would have maybe caught that the very next cast, that's kind of a screwed up thing to do. So that's really the argument against them. My total recap is as follows. I think that in its best, the reason that co-anglers should exist, if they all were to be ethical and be good stewards of the co-angler, laws, then it would be a good thing. But if the co-anglers are being a little bit unethical and casting in front of the boat and doing things to try to catch the fish that they shouldn't really be fishing for in the first place, that causes a lot of issues. And I think that that's why we came to this point where there is none. Overall, though, I think people can adapt because there's still so many avenues to compete at a lower level and not have to spend as much money. You know, like the Costa Series and some of the Bass stuff and the BFLs. I don't even know what all is offered anymore. I'm not much of a tournament guy myself. But overall, there's still plenty of avenues to grow. Whoo! Whoo! 5 minutes went by quick, but I tell you what, I said what I need to say. I hope people don't rip my head off for my thoughts. I believe that there's pros and cons of everything, and this is one of those where it's really a tough conversation to have. Overall, though, you know what I'm going to say next. I hope you have yourself a fantastic weekend, and we'll catch you next time.